Celina Harrell with Ayre Rhinehart Bay REALTORS here to go over who is involved in a real estate transaction. Now, there are many moving parts involved in a real estate transaction, and knowing who to contact and when is just as important, if not more so, than getting that purchase agreement signed. So here is a rundown of the potential players involved in the transaction. And remember that each transaction is as unique as the individuals involved. So while this covers the norm, there are many other variables where other professionals will be required. So first off are the buyers. So the buyers are the people who are looking to acquire those assets, that real estate property. That could be a person, persons, or like an entity like an LLC. Now the seller is the person, persons, or LLC who owns that property, and they're looking to, downsize or liquidate or whatever the case may be. They own the property and they market it. Now the buyer's agent is the agent who is working for the buyer exclusively. So they're always working on their behalf and in their best interests. Whereas the seller's agent is just the flip side. They're working for the seller exclusively, and all of their fiduciary duties and services go for the seller. So buyer's agent works with the buyer, seller's agent works for the seller. And then of course there is like a transaction coordinator or a dual agent, but we'll cover that in a different video. Now, also involved in the real estate transaction is a loan officer or a mortgage officer, depending on who you talk with. Now, the loan officer is the lender involved with a financial institution who is working with the buyer to get all of their finances squared away so that they can acquire that real estate property. And you're going to be in contact with this loan officer throughout the entirety of the deal. So make sure that you like them and that you guys click together and that the services that they're offering is something that you want. Because that's very important, because you're going to be working with this guy throughout the transaction and beyond once you actually acquire the property. Now, also involved with the loan officers are the mortgage underwriters and the loan processors. You don't typically see or hear from these people, but they're working behind the scenes to get that loan through, and generally that's what takes most of the time once you get past all the inspection period. Now, as we move on with that inspection, that typically takes place within 10 days of the signed purchase agreement. Everything's negotiable. 10 days is just the norm, but case by case it changes. So home inspection, they check out the property. This is not an appraisal. So the home inspector is basically just going through, noting everything and anything that could be potentially wrong with the property so that you as the buyer get an informed decision. Now, once everything is clear, you haven't run into any other issues, there are other inspectors that can take place. There's the lead-based paint inspection, there's mold inspection, well and septic inspectors as well. Like I said before, everybody's unique, every case is different, so depending on your needs, you may be working with all of these other inspectors, but just know that a property inspector is always recommended. That way you know about anything and everything about the house that the inspector can see. Now, moving on, once all the inspections are okay, we're working with the title agent. So the title agent is the one who is working with this case, finding out if the seller actually owns the title to the house and does any research on any liens or other hang-ups that could potentially hold up the deal. Now, you're also going to be working with this title agent through the entirety of the transaction and is going to be the one working at the closing table, which is the exciting point. So moving on, we also have an appraiser. The appraiser is typically sought after by the loan officer or the financial institution that you're working with. So the appraiser does exactly what the name says. They compare other properties that are similar in the area and make sure that the bank is loaning an appropriate amount of money to purchase this property. So let's say your house that you're purchasing, you have a sales price set at $250,000. The appraiser is going to find out if, in fact, that house is worth $250,000 or $280,000 or 50,000. You know, it really depends on the area, because you can offer whatever you want, but that appraiser is going to make sure that the financial institution is safe in their lending. Now, last but not least is the assessor. Also, one of the back office people. They are the ones that are working with the county, and they take care of all the records, recording the deed, and so on. So some of these people you're going to see a lot of, some of them you'll never even hear from. But just know that they are involved in a real estate transaction. Of course, there are always others. And as we run into more and more people, I'll be doing interviews with those people. That way you know what to expect, who to contact, and how to get through this process easy peasy and without any hassle. So this was Celina Harrell with Ayre Rhinehart Bay Realtors. Happy house hunting. Take care.